Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV at Christmas time. I'm Andrew Sumner. It is almost Christmas Day, so Forbidden Planet's head book buyer, the mighty Laura Jayne Dodd, sat down with two of her favourite authors, Ally Wilkes and Tim Lebbon, to talk about the glorious confluence between horror and Christmas. Glorious and unexpected confluence. And here they are in mid-conversation. Enjoy.
So, looking at different kind of types of horror, so is there any kind of style of horror that you haven't had the chance to write that you would like to in the future?
You've done everything, haven't
you?
you?
I've done quite a bit. So, I've never done a haunted house novel.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago I met Daniel Serra at the Leipzig Book Fair, and we really hit it off. He's brilliant, Danny.
He's gorgeous.
He's amazing.
Gorgeous
and we really hit it off, had a beer and said we should collaborate, and we both said haunted house. So we wrote this thing called Without Walls, which is like a heavily illustrated novella that PS Publishing published. Made a great job of it. It's a beautiful looking book, and it was a really unique, I could go on for hours about this, but we collaborated, so it wasn't as if he just illustrated my novella. I was writing a few hundred words, and then he was illustrating, and he was coming back with ideas. So we essentially built the novella together, and were credited together for it. It wasn't novella by Tim Lebbon, artwork by Danny Serra. It was, so for me that was my sort of haunted house novella. But I'd like to write a novel at some point, haunted house, I think.
I think I'm at the moment still happy with the historical, supernatural, survival horror. I can think of all sorts of environments I'd like to take it into. I would eventually like to do a deep sea one, because the deep sea, as we all know, is bloody terrifying.
Yeah.
It's just, stuff down there is wrong. Stuff down there is 100% wrong and shouldn't be. So I would love to do that sort of thing. So in a similar vein, I think I'd quite like to do space horror as well, because again, there's stuff out there that should not be and that we shouldn't poke at.
I've just started a space horror novel.
Can I read it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've done a few chapters. When they're tidied up, I'll send it to you.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. I'm having the problem with that of too many characters. I'm just going to have to blow up a spaceship soon.
Yeah, could an airlock.
Yeah.
Can you walk out the airlock? Right.
I suppose with the idea of space, we can segue into adaptations, because obviously, including the Alien book that's right next to my head. So, Tim, you've worked with a lot of different kind of film, TV franchises. How does the process differ when you're writing Alien novelisation to writing your horror novels?
So, a novelisation of a movie is basically, I've done, for you guys, I've done Kong Skull Island and Cabin in the Woods. I think that was my first book for Titan, actually. So you set the screenplay, cut and paste it into a Word document. You're not allowed to, but yeah, you can do that. Excuse me. And then turn it into a novel. So you get into the characters' heads, which you can't do in a screenplay, and internalise what they're going through, and try and expand the story a little. But tie in stuff like At the Shadows. I sort of treat it like my own novels. I put as much effort into them as I do my own novels, but obviously you're constrained within that universe. So there's always somebody. So for Out the Shadows, there was a guy at Fox called Josh Izzo, who was our canon leader. So we'd run past stuff him, and he'd okay it or not okay it. But every property I've worked for is different. So Star Wars and Hellboy and Firefly, for instance, you all get sort of different amount of leeway. But generally, I've never found that it's really constraining. They want you to broaden the canon, really, and widen the story. So I love playing in other people's sandpits, because you've sort of got a structure ready for you to to put your story into, and it's always good fun.
Ali, would there be any universes that you would like to write within?
I think I'd really like to write in the Alien universe. I could really see that being fun. Space horror, isolation horror is a huge thing for me. And if I was allowed to do a historical Alien novel, I think I'd be super into that.
Yeah, because I mean, I may be alone here, but like Prometheus and stuff just didn't really hit quite right.
You're not alone.
I know, good.
Basically, what I would like to do is expand out the universe of Aliens vs Predator, the movie, with the giant pyramid underneath Antarctica, the abandoned whaling station, all the scenes about the seeding of the alien brood down there, etc.
You do a great job at that.
You've got Antarctica, you've got all the stuff I like.
Yes.
That would be brilliant.
You heard it here first.
And you'd probably make it good as well.
Yeah.
Whereas
Alien vs Predator is a great film. I will die on this hill.
You'll die on that pyramid.
I will die on that pyramid. I think it is probably the closest we're ever going to get to it, as Guillermo del Toro isn't being allowed to do his. I think it's the closest we'll ever get to a decent adaptation of At the Mountains of Madness, because all the tropes function in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So I think you could interchange those two very easily. And I love At the Mountains of Madness.
Did you see some of the trial footage from that, from Del Toro's? Oh, it just looked amazing.
I know, the
It would have
elder
been
thing.
brilliant. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
God.
exactly. No, I'm forever going to be salty about there being no film of that. But, you know,
Is it definitely not happening?
as far as I know, yeah.
God, that's sad. I'm similar with George A. Romero started to do a Resident Evil film.
Oh,
Obviously, way back when.
I
and
love Resident
I
Evil.
think they did hence the.
I
Yeah.
noticed that. Yeah.
And I think they shot about 20 minutes or so, and then there was lots of arguments on set and various
it's
other things.
such a
So that
shame.
there is 20 minutes that you can view.
Oh wow.
But
amazing.
that's it. And
Right.
you're just like, God, if that would have come to pass.
I love the Resident Evil films. They're all such fun.
Yeah,
They're fun.
They're
very
such
cheesy.
fun. I recently rewatched Welcome to Raccoon City, and I had an absolute blast the entire time. It was great.
I'm a massive Alien fan, as you know, obviously.
No.
Yeah. But there's law of diminishing returns with. I just really hope the TV series brings it back to contemporary.
Yes.
Ooh, do you know
So-
what's coming up as a TV series that I would really like to work on, Sarah?
Yeah.
Event Horizon.
Oh,
It's
my
being
God,
expanded
really?
into a TV
Wow, that would
series
be cool.
because I think that covers again all the bases of stuff we like in terms of survival
Lovecraftian,
horror.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Such a good film.
You're going to beat me to it, aren't you?
No.
Ah.
That'd be awesome though.
That would be
We
good.
team up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
You heard it here first.
And Tim, is there any other franchises other than Event Horizon that you would?
Weirdly enough, probably not horror. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Shield TV series.
Okay.
I don't think there's been any Shield novelizations. Not sure really. I've been really lucky and have done a lot of the stuff I love, like Alien and Firefly and Star Wars. I think I'd love to do another Star Wars now that it's really expanded.
Oh yes, yeah.
I'd like to do a horror Star Wars. I mean, my Star Wars novel was sort of a sword and sorcery Star Wars, really. I'd love to do a real horror one. But I was hoping to do a trilogy, and then Disney bought it, and my Star Wars novel became one of the legend period. But yeah, maybe that.
That would be cool. That would be very good. It's very like Star Wars publishing is such a great thing. We have many UK based authors as well writing Star Wars. The only issue, like it's a personal issue for me, is that every publisher in the land owns a certain part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
it's a bit strange, yeah.
When we did Star Wars Celebration earlier this year, it was so confusing to try. Okay, we've got this person signing, and this artist here, and their book is here, but their book's at Dark Horse, but this one's a Penguin, and this one's
right.
Yeah, it was
confusing.
Yeah, it was a whole other spreadsheet. It was.
When I wrote mine, it was mine was the first in the timeline, literally 25,000 years before New Hope, which I still call Star Wars. 'Cause I'm old. But the good thing about that was I didn't have to read a load of novels for research. It was just the first one in the timeline.
No, that is quite good. Everyone has to come after you.
Yeah.
And just talk about adaptations as well. So, did I hear right that you got to be a corpse in the adaptation of The Silence?
I was.
Yes.
Yeah. I could show you the photo after. It's trigger warning. It's a bit bloody. But I was lucky enough to get on set, and I sort of hit it off with the director John Leonetti, great director, and they were filming I was on set for 2 days and they were filming a little scene set in a pharmacy. So it was all indoors, it was all dark and gloomy, and apparently there was fungi in this deserted, so people walking around with masks on. I thought, what have I got myself into? But I said to John, do you need another corpse? And he said, are you down for that? I said, no, I'm up for it. It's a bit of American. And then there was a bit of talk behind the scenes with the producers, because I couldn't have taken anyone's role. And there were a load of extras there, some of them like amputee extras, to be people who've been attacked by the vesps. But I took the role of a dummy, so it was allowed. So they made me look like a corpse. Took 3 or 4 hours and bloodied me up and put me on the floor. And I thought it'd be really technical how they did it. They literally got a bucket of blood and tipped it over me, splashed everywhere, and then filmed it. I was on the floor for half an hour, really uncomfortable. I'm in the film for half a second. Quite literally half a second. If you try and freeze it, it takes a few efforts. But brilliant experience, I acted with Stanley Tucci.
That's pretty yes, that's pretty cool.
He actually thought I was his double for the day, which is really hysterical.
Looking at I suppose almost the resurgence of horror, especially since lockdown, I think, where obviously people were stuck indoors, and now they desperately want to read horror about outdoors, which seems to be, which is a great thing, that you want the idea of you're in a location that you could never imagine to be in the middle of nowhere. So how do you think lockdown may have kind of shaped how you guys write your horror novels?
Oh, that's interesting. So I wrote The Last Storm longhand during lockdown.
Wow.
First time I've ever written a book longhand. And it's because before lockdown, so my good friend Rio Ewers, hey Rio, in Canada, writes all his stuff longhand, so he'd been talking to me about that. So, but Rio does it he'll write through the day longhand, and then he types it up day by day. So I thought, fuck that, I'm gonna order some really nice notebooks and a nice pen and write a whole novel longhand. And I had romantic images of sitting on top of mountains with a flask of coffee, writing, and going to pubs and sitting on the beach, and then we need you to stay at home. So I wrote the whole thing longhand at home with my daughter finishing her degree, my son finishes A-levels, my wife working at home. And then I had to type it all up, which was horrific because I can't read my own writing. So I got the gist. But I think writing that book during lockdown, writing something very much based in the open sort of, I called it the desert of North America because it's a climate thriller. I think I was just projecting myself beyond being stuck indoors for months on end. I'm not sure how lockdown actually affected the reader's view of horror. I think there are varying opinions on that. Some people will say people don't want to read horror because what was happening to us was horrific. But I think it's been sort of, it feels to me that horror's become more popular since then.
I think so. And also, I remember a study was done, I think it was reported in The Guardian, that said that people who read and watched more horror were more psychologically healthy during the pandemic because in some ways they'd created mini rehearsal scenarios in their head. You know, it all feels a lot more familiar if you've seen films in which people aren't allowed to go outside, or you've read books, etc. So you get a sense of what to do. So I think that's really interesting that horror can have a function in sort of creating mini rehearsal scenarios in your head for when you're faced with the real thing. I think with both of my books, maybe they sort of vibe with lockdown quite a lot, even though All the White Spaces was written a long time before lockdown, because they're both concerned with very, very small, very claustrophobic settings where you're surrounded by probably your workmates as well as people you don't like very much. It's the nature of these expeditions. But what's outside will kill you. Whether it's the weather, whether it's angry ghosts, whether it's ghouls, whether it's the ice, what's outside will absolutely kill you. So to that extent, they're two very lockdown-y novels, I guess.
I like the idea that we're more healthier people because we enjoy horror.
Well, I've got to hope so, right?
Yeah.
I've got to hope so.
I've always said, you know, I've been writing horror quite a while now and been to lots of conventions. I've got a lot of mates who are horror writers, and in 99 times out of 100, they're lovely people.
Yeah.
I mean, virtually all of them are lovely, you know, pleasant and a pleasure to be around. Stop and writing horror for a year and see what they're like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not an experiment I want to do, really.
I think, like, I've met now quite a lot of horror authors since my first book came out, and before that I was really in the horror film scene. Like, I was a big Fright Fest attendee, went for 14 years until COVID hit, and I used to find horror fans were the nicest people and they were the gentlest people, because I think horror as a genre requires quite a lot of empathy of the reader or the viewer. If you're not capable of putting yourself in the shoes of the protagonist, you're not going to get as much out of the book or the film. So I think it encourages people to put themselves in other people's shoes, visualise life from a different perspective, and I think that's what's great about the sort of the new wave of horror we've got going on at the moment, where it's horror from more traditionally marginalised groups, and I'm just delighted that readers are capable of, you know, taking that journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's such a fantastic range now, and obviously a lot that Titan publish, which is fantastic. So yeah, definitely more interesting and weird and kooky and quirky kind of horror coming through. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I think there's also a horror community thing. I think it's this. I mean, people may not really overtly think it, but it's a bit niche still. You know, and I think when you go to a convention, it's a horror convention, it's like we're all in this together. And that has a little effect. It's sort of, you can translate it to music as well. I'm a sort of rock and metal fan. You go to a metal gig and it's a real feel-good experience, you know. Maybe that's
it's
similar thing.
Yeah, it is. It's about finding your people, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of horror fans, as well as just geeks in general, probably grew up waiting a while to find their people. So when you do, you're just like, it is great. So
we rock, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Such fun.
Who knew it's going to be cool to be so awkward?
I'd like to say I knew, but
no.
Oh, not back in the school days. Oh, wow.
Yeah. My nickname for some of my school years was Spooky, because everyone had watched the X-Files and it was Spooky Mulder. So I was Spooky Wilkes.
Weren't you secretly delighted with that, though?
Kind of.
Yeah, that's a pretty good name.
It's a good name.
Actually.
I can think of a lot worse.
Me too.
So in both of the books, there's quite a and especially obviously in Ally's, there's quite a slow kind of build, but you feel you're going towards something you almost kind of don't, but you do, and also kind of very kind of well researched. But how difficult is it to find that kind of fine line between almost writing too much research into the novel? There's just enough there to be like, you definitely know what you're talking about, and this feels like a real place and something that could really happen. But we've probably all read certain horror books that are maybe slightly too over researched. So yeah, how do you find that kind of?
We definitely weren't talking about this in the cafe
No.
earlier. Absolutely not. No.
No names.
No names came up. I think for me with the historical stuff, I only ever want to put in either as much as serves the story or the characters, or if something is really cool. And everything else, stuff that's there to show that I've done my homework, I'm not that concerned about making to the final draft. And so if people want to read, a really in-depth exploration of the absolute minutiae of what an 1850s whaling ship looked like, they shouldn't be reading my books, because I will not take them through all the decks bit by bit and name all the parts of the ship. But you will, I hope, when I write an action sequence set on that ship, get a sense that I'm not making my characters walk through walls. So I like to try and strike that balance.
So you know more than you put on the page.
I
think that's the secret with research. If if you know an awful lot more than you put on the page, then what you put on the page comes out as sort of three-dimensional, and you know what you're talking about. It's quite easy to put too much in there, but I also tend to veer away from books that have to research too much. Among the Living, I did location and climate and rare earth minerals and stuff like that. I had to research, but I tend not to put too much in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the main thing is not to write for the expert, and not to write to please the expert, because if you're writing to please the expert, there's a whole load of people you won't be pleasing, and it'll be getting in the way of what you really want to do.
Yeah, and you'll probably not please the expert either.
Oh, I know.
Because you'll get emails.
There is always going to be some guy on the internet called Keith who is desperate to tell me about whaleboat davits. And
did that happen?
I'm sorry, Keith, I love you. But come on, I wrote 2 books.
Yeah.
They can't all be about whaleboat davits.
That'll come in the next book. It'll be all focused on
all whaleboats, all the time.
Yes.
You heard it here.
Do you find it difficult to keep track of kind of a larger cast of characters as well, or is it kind of easy to be like, okay, especially with the kind of time difference between the different chapters, do you have to kind of plan each character where they are, you know, who they're friends with, whether they're still alive?
Whether they're still alive
Whether they're still
is the
alive,
big
yes.
one for my books, because I tend to write books that, because they're supernatural survival horror, you start with a big cast list and then they slowly. And in my first book, All the White Spaces, I put a cast list at the start of the book so people can go through with a red pen if they like and just, you know, oh, there's another one guy, dead, lost, mauled. I didn't do that with Where the Dead Wait because, as you say, there are 2 timelines, there are multiple ships, there are multiple characters, and I thought it would just be too overwhelming up front to give the reader that much information up front. I didn't want to put anyone off. So instead what I tried to do is put in characters organically as they fell and as their plots and character demanded. And if a page ever became too crowded, I knew that there was something possibly amiss with it.
So the character list is quite wide in Among the Living, but I sort of narrowed it down in my head by having 3 or 4 point of view characters, and then killing some of them off quite early on.
Yeah,
that's always an easy an easy out. But I do find it a bit difficult, especially in multiple character scenes. I never like jumping between points of view in one scene, so I'd need to figure out which character is best to show that scene, whose eyes is best to show that scene through. There's sort of 2 main characters in my book and a couple of sort of B characters, I guess. But it's good to start with a larger list because then you can just kill them off horribly quite early on.
You've got more scope, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of the name of that amazing historical ship drama that was on last year, set on like an ocean-going liner that gets sucked into some sort of time warp or something. We'll all know the one that I mean. But I thought it was so audacious what they did. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, because they introduced you to all the main protagonists, and then they very cleverly did away with everyone else who wasn't a main protagonist by just having them walk off the ship and jump into the sea.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's amazing. You've cleared the decks.
Yeah,
literally. Yeah, perfect.
So to finish off the interview for today, so we've got a couple more questions. So obviously the idea of what scares people. So what are you fearful of, and do you try to kind of conquer that within your books or within your everyday lives?
My family in peril, basically, is, since I became a dad, most of my writing, an awful lot of it has been about family in peril, and that's what scares me. And the last 2 or 3 books, climate thrillers, because that scares the crap out of me, what we're doing to the planet and what we're not doing to put it right. So yeah, I definitely write about things like that. Not only because they scare me, but because it's you know, you get over the effects in the books. Then I think if you're writing about something that scares you, it'll come through to the audience as well, hopefully.
For me, my biggest personal fear is plane crashes. I'm a very, very nervous flyer, and I don't write about it, and I think one of the reasons I don't write about it is I would have to then read about it and watch films about it, and then I'd probably never get on a plane again. So, which would be good for the climate. I recognise that, and I already, you know, I think when I flew to Stoke-on this year was the first time I'd flown in like 10 years, and that was enough of a shit show. I don't need to also marinate my brain in those images.
Fair. I just finished watching Yellow Jacket, so that's a lot of plane crashes.
I
wilderness.
I admit it that when they're actually showing the plane crash, it's like,
yes.
yeah, I can't watch that. The aftermath, that's fine, you know. Oh, his leg's torn off, fine. Oh, they're eating people on. Amazing. But the actual plane crash, no.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet. My wife and I keep sort of surfing past it. Oh, that's supposed to be good. So, yeah, right. Yeah. We should try that, definitely.
Yeah, I think there's a third season coming, but it may be delayed, I think, because of obviously writer strikes and stuff. But, but yeah, very good. Very good. So, what are you both currently reading, watching, and if you game, what are you playing?
This is where I stare into the distance. I'm now unable to remember the name of a single book or a single product. At the moment, I've just started reading The Path of Thorns by Angela Slatter. Her editor was kind enough to send me a big bunch of Angela Slatter books. I love them. Dark fairy tales with a twist, really sort of very, I know it's such a cliche, very strong female protagonists that are also often very morally ambiguous. They're fantastic books. What I'm watching... you might have to come back to me on that one.
Okay. So we're watching, my wife and I, we tend to do 2 or 3 TV series at the same time. So we're watching Monarch at the moment, Legacy of Monsters, which is good fun. It's okay. We sort of, my wife tends to fall asleep watching it. So we'll watch the next episode. And she said, why are they doing that? I said, it's going to take too long to just watch the monsters. I've just finished reading a little collection by Kaylee Dobbs called The End, which is really good, from Black Shark Books. Mini collection is like 5 short stories. Yeah, it's really good. Totally recommend that. I don't play games, although I have worked on a game. I think they twigged that I didn't play games, but that was good fun. And the next movie I want to see is Godzilla -1, because I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah, I've heard great things.
So that's, I think it's out next week in this country, so I really want to see that. I like a big monster.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like a big monster?
But I don't like big monsters when they fight big robots.
Oh,
I didn't like
I
those
love
films.
that.
Did you?
I love
Oh,
that.
no.
Pacific Rim is one of my big unsung favourites. I love it.
Is it really?
It's so dumb and it's so heartfelt.
Yeah, that's why I should enjoy it, because it's just done so earnestly, isn't it? But yeah.
I think what I'm looking forward to watching next is Society of the Snows, which is Netflix's new film about the Uruguayan flight disaster, which most people will know from maybe being traumatised by the film called Alive when they were younger.
Oh God, yeah.
It's about that rugby team in the Andes that had to eat each other.
They ate each other,
Apparently the new film is amazing. I have such an unhealthy fascination with that story. I think it releases in cinemas on Christmas Day or some other sort of absolutely bonkers scheduling choice, so I'll be there for sure.
I mean, yeah, nothing says Christmas like a plane crash. Yeah, I think it's next year is the anniversary of Godzilla, because we're hoping to do some stuff at the next Comic-Con. So if you guys come along, there should be some very cool Godzilla stuff, which would be good. And what are you both currently working on?
I'm working on a third novel. It's also historical, supernatural, with a sort of colonial exploration twist. So very much an Ally Wilkes TM book. It's I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's about the orchid mania and orchid hunting in the Amazon in the early 1900s. And my elevator pitch for it would be Rebecca meets the ruins.
Very
That
cool.
sounds amazing.
Very cool.
I like that. Take my money now.
Yeah.
Although, can I get a free copy?
Yeah, sure.
Well, there you go.
I've just started a space horror novel on spec, just because I had this idea and I thought it was really cool, so I'm launched into that. launched into that. See what I did there. And I'm doing my first comic was out 2 weeks ago called Mortal Terror that I wrote.
Cool.
I'm writing with Christopher Golden, so we're still working on that.
Yeah.
And I've always got ideas ticking over in the background for screenplays and things. But that's about all I can sort of. Yeah, I've got a couple of film things ticking over, but very, very, very early days.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it's quite exciting.
Yeah. Very. So lots more to come in 2024.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Good stuff. And to finish the interview today, so we're going to let people in on a sneak treat that one of our first events for next year is with you guys signing in the London store. You'll be back. Whether you want to or not.
Well, you've made us these things now.
Yeah,
so
you've got
to do it now.
So so if anyone wants to check out our website, you can see dates and times. It's early February.
I think so.
So yes, so perfect time because people will have been paid again after Christmas.
Yeah. And have book tokens to spend.
Exactly, book tokens. Yes, exactly. So yes. So we look forward to seeing you guys in the new year.
Yes, it's going to be fun.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for coming this evening. God, it's
It's a windowless room.
It's 5 to 4. It'll be dark outside.
It's been a long day. Okay. And yeah, we're gonna get you to sign a few of these books if that's okay.
Always happy to sign books.
So, but yeah, thank you to everyone at home for watching. And yeah, there'll be links attached to go to look for the event and also to pre-order signed books for both Tim and Ali. But thank you so much. Happy Christmas, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.